Hello and welcome back to Teppou Republic. On the last episode, a lot happened. We started off seeing Takamichi attacking Odawara's last stronghold at Fukushima. We wiped them out without much resistance, meaning we've destroyed their clan and captured our first territory in a while. The capture of the territory unlocked a train station which allowed me to immediately start moving troops towards the next shogunate province of Miyagi, and Takamichi is now targeting Uzen. Now the Satsuma had landed forces in Ki, and that army now comes to attack the castle. The army was very good, apart from the fact that it had no artillery, meaning it had to do a forced manpower assault on the walls, which proved quite difficult because the castle defences played to my advantage. My forces were able to defeat the enemy, actually taking only minimal losses due to the enemy's morale breaking at critical moments. Moving on, we attacked the Sado landing force over in Echigo with Echigo's garrison army. The enemy had naval artillery fire supporting them, meaning they had an opportunity to deal a lot of casualties on me before the battle started. Luckily, I managed to open up a gap in the line, so most of the artillery landed harmlessly, although we did have some rather big smashes through our line occur. The enemy were then defeated quite rapidly in a traditional battle because we had a big numerical advantage. In Miyagi, we moved up 2 armies thanks to our train station to attack the province. The overwhelming advantage allowed us to take the castle by auto-resolve. Takayuki, who had been chasing Hiroshima behind our lines, lost track of them and instead started chasing some Satsuma forces who looked like they were about to break through, and is now generally heading back to the front line in the west. On that front line, Takahisa has just moved his army to attack the Okayama main force standing outside of Bizen. It's a samurai heavy army who we hope to defeat and then go on to attack their castle. Let's continue. My Lord Shogun, please do hurry. I'm in no hurry to be driven out of my land, I assure you. Those of you without the responsibility of rulership do not know the extent of the humiliation I feel as my feet leave these shores. My shores, running from rebels, leaving the people to suffer, promising a brighter future with no viable plan to achieve it. No, hurry is the last thing on my tired mind, so please keep quiet. My lord. In my final declaration, I told the people that although I now flee, my spirit remains firmly in Honshu, even in Edo, at the heart of the one true Japanese culture. As I wrote it, I believed it, but the cold air tonight has blown away the dust in my old head. The truth is that my spirit left this fight long ago, driven away by the constant failures of all those in whom I place my trust, the constant arrogance of the renegades, and constantly being asked what it is I plan to do about it all. There is nothing left we can do. We are lost already. All this is just theatre for the masses, a way to look like we have a plan, a chance, but lo, by the time we reach Hokkaido, I suppose these shores shall be covered in the banner of the rebels, and every man I see will be a bounty hunter. And so, little man, you just be happy that when this trip is over, you shall be able to return to your home and weather whatever storm the Sioux bring with some degree of safety. Spare a thought for the broken old man you ferried from his homeland, never to return outside of a burial casket. So we're back, and Takahisa is pressing on the samurai army of the Okayama, currently advancing towards him. As we begin the battle, the artillery are going to be dominating the field. The enemy has tons of really decent samurai units and melee troops who'll be able to do massive damage at close range, but while they're far away, they're no more harder to kill than any unit. You can see they have lots of cavalry on both wings and powerful infantry in the center, set up in multiple lines, a perfect target for shrapnel shots. So as usual, I'm going to be bombarding these high-level units with shrapnel, taking them down with ease. And now the enemy must advance across this very flat, coverless battlefield towards me, and I'm going to hitting them with artillery all the way. Plus, once I get a bit closer, I have some mortars who'll start firing, destroying their formations with their explosive shots. The enemy are going to take a lot of damage as they come in. You can see the ground is peppered with their bodies, showing the way that they advance, covered in shell holes as well. As they get closer, the sharpshooters in the second line of my formation will start firing at them, doing even more damage. You can see they're just about able to fire over the top of my main line. the enemy advanced past this telegraph pole, which is pretty much a phase line for me because that's where the range of my sharpshooters starts. You can see the telegraph wires are actually missing. I wonder if this is part of the game, like my cannons damaged it or something, but they're floating mysteriously in the air where they're not missing, which is quite strange. They're leading with matchlock militants, who are surprisingly brave. They've already lost tons of their men, but they're still boldly advancing forwards, being sniped, but then suddenly they rout just as the cavalry begins its advance, which is perfect. I'm going to get lots of shots on these cavalry. The squad of elite Bakumatsu Lancers is taking a lot of fire, and they take artillery shots. Another squad of Bakumatsu Lancers is rushing towards my own Yari Cav, who I sent out to receive them. Kind of a bad thing for me because the enemy's Cav is superior to mine, and they get a really nice charge on me, so my guys are in trouble there. Another squad of cavalry managed to reach my line. My domain guards are struggling to get out of the way whilst I send in these Buddhist zealots to contain the enemy's cav. Hopefully we'll win out there. Another squad here is just about stopped by some Yari attendants before they hit the main line. They do a couple of casualties against my troops, but overall that's a pretty stable situation as well. Here a similar thing happened. Back out with the Bakumatsu Lancers, I've sent in some Buddhist zealots to support my cav, hoping to defeat the enemy's cavalry before losing too many of my own. Good for me, the enemy's Gokunin are running up and down the front of my line, getting shot to pieces. The ones who are advancing into my line have already taken loads of damage, like this little team here. They're bravely charging, weapons forward, all but one are killed before they reach the line, and when they do, they struggle in melee against the carbine infantry, turn around and get shot in the back immediately. So that guy was very brave to have made it that far, but was unable to do any damage. Many of his companions in arms face the same fate. They do move forward a squad of ninja, which blows a massive hole in my line with their grenades, but they have no support units to exploit that gap, and the ninja aren't going to hang around to continue their attack. They rout, so overall they didn't manage to use that surprise attack very effectively. Back out on the right flank, my cavalry have quit the engagement, having taken too many losses, leaving my Buddhist zealots to deal with everything. The enemy are cavalry charging them again. They're cycle charging the zealots, meaning they're taking quite a lot of damage actually, especially because they're also fighting with the enemy's elite melee infantry, who are a good match for them. Overall, this zealot regiment was severely depleted. Almost all of them were killed, 90% casualty ratio, but they did their job on the flank there, and their very good morale allowed them to hold. The final enemy unit fighting was a samurai hero squad who fell back after taking too many losses. Now all of the enemy's army is in retreat. It's a decisive victory for Takahisa's army, the sort of victory we've seen a couple of times before, a heavily samurai based army just being cut down, unable to advance quick enough into a double line of rifles, just gunning them down, especially when artillery are adding to the effect and damaging their morale as they come in. So this win means Okayama is now relatively undefended and it's ours for the taking. During the pursuit, I stopped to observe a heap of enemy dead, lying beside a still smoking crater. Their ornate armour was torn all over, dripping blood into the warm dirt. Their finely sharpened weapons lay on the ground beside them, unblunted and unbloodied. The value of what was lost when that shell hit these men is measured in more than human life. In expertise, culture, and historical spheres, these bodies were a final note. But the new music was marching on without me, so I hurried on and gripped my sword just as tightly as before. Still, I'll always remember that moment by the crater. We get some good results. Most of the losses in our army are confined to a couple of individual regiments, meaning once those are taken out of action, our army is still going to be looking very healthy. So the defeat of that army means Okayama, the capital of Bizen, is now ripe for the attack. We can go in to besiege them, but the garrison is actually pretty good. It's got loads of upgrades and the balance bar isn't very far in our favour, so I decided to siege them out for now. In the east, I'm moving Kodama up closer to the front line. He's been lagging behind for a while. Finally, he's getting close. He can move to Fukushima by train. He can't move into Miyagi because the train station hasn't been constructed yet. It's still going to be 7 turns before that train station gets made, so it'll be a long time for him to wait. It's enough time that it's worth just walking up to the front line so he can finally get involved in some of the combat. Moving on, the Satsuma decided to send an agent to kill one of the foreign veterans training my armies near Setsu. Very inconvenient. We briefly spot a naval invasion force moving around there. They move into Yamashiro and attack the tea fields in Setsu and then move a stack close to the castle, so they're on an all-out offensive. The Hiroshima appear to be moving into Bizen. They've got forces moving into Harima, but suddenly the Yonago, also moving into Inaba, are ambushed by Kunimitsu's forces. I guess this is what I was trying to get him to do, although he's not actually at full strength. But still, luckily the Yonago force isn't that powerful. It does have some really good units in it, like Armstrong guns, ordnance rifles, and domain guards, US cavalry as well. A perfect force to ambush. We can destroy all of these elite high-level units in a quick battle, hopefully without taking too many losses and not letting them come to siege the castle. So the ambush begins. My forces deploy right next to the enemy and immediately start firing at them. I've also put my artillery at the end of the enemy's column so it can fire shrapnel shot down the column, destroying their infantry battalions, and they're going to continue to fire at them for the entire battle. The enemy didn't counterattack them, luckily for me. The enemy are turning to try and fire back, but their morale is already shaken by the fact they're taking tons of fire just as they form up. The United States cavalry there taking sharpshooter fire. Some of their melee units are falling back as I charge forward to my own melee guys to try and engage them. Their artillery in the center is just floundering, trying to set up, unsure where to aim. Their men who are stationary firing at my line are now taking mortar fire, howitzer fire. Overall, their little tight pack formation is not going to work to their advantage. Further down the line, the enemy did get some of their heavy melee units into melee with my lighter rifle infantry, but very quickly they routed and I counterattacked with my own melee guys anyway. They're trying a similar thing here. These guys have better luck. They charge with their naganatas into my line infantry, dealing casualties against me. You can see I wasn't paying enough attention to move these yellow attendants forward fast enough, but now they will move in to engage the enemy. Their morale's already low because of army losses. You can see the balance bar has turned severely in our favour. The surviving enemy forces decide to rout under sustained artillery fire and gunfire. Their morale cannot hold up. The enemy's US cavalry are destroyed by my own cavalry. Their artillery guns did manage to set up just before the rest of their army routed and my cavalry came in to clear the enemy's crew away from the guns. So luckily they didn't get to use their really powerful artillery there. So the battle suddenly ends in a decisive victory. I think the replay was corrupt because we didn't get any victory music, but that's a pretty accurate depiction of the battle. A decisive victory indeed, a rapid fight where in just a couple of minutes we completely eradicated some very high level enemy forces. So overall, a very productive couple of minutes. The battle results look good, of course. A few losses and we captured 2 squads of ordnance rifles from the enemy. A shame not to capture their Armstrong guns, but still useful artillery to have, and the Yonago invasion of Edinburgh province has been defeated. Now the Okayama forces move an army into Harima, so Harima is yet again in trouble, and the Yonazawa forces near Miyagi fall back into Uzen, where Takamichi is currently advancing on, so we're probably going to see them again soon. Now over in Setsu, I'm looking to see that foreign veteran who was assassinated. Luckily it was the inferior of the 2 foreign veterans who happened to be in this province. The more experienced one, Oscar Coote, is still alive. You can see there's loads of enemy agents and I can't really do anything about it because if I use my agents to defeat them, sooner or later my agents will be killed themselves in the process and then I'll be left with nothing and won't be able to use the passive abilities of those agents. So in many ways I'm just hoping the enemy will ignore my agents in the long term. Now the local Satsuma army that was just moving past is ripe for the attack by my forces in Setsu, who've been gradually replenishing their numbers and now have a good number of strong units. You can see the balance bar is very far in our favour. I decide to attack. The enemy army is a mix of good, bad and middling units overall, not a particularly powerful force. We destroy it, we capture some wooden cannons, not too useful, taking perfectly acceptable losses. Although it's annoying to have to keep getting these forces to go back into the castle to regenerate up to each fight because they don't have a general. I really thought they would have spawned a general by now because they've won so many battles between them, but apparently not. I'm going to disband those wooden cannons, by the way, because I don't think they're going to be very useful. Now Takayuki is going to switch armies, leaving behind his previous force to join the new one just recruited in Owari. So this is our most modern and arguably the best army, although it is lacking experience at the moment. It does have the Armstrong guns in it, so it's definitely the best in terms of artillery. His previous army will move towards Owaji Island with the plan of stopping any more invasions, just like the Okayama have done there. And Takayuki himself is going to pretty much waste some time by chasing down these Satsuma forces, just stopping them from getting any further into our territory so I don't have to chase them even more later on. There's not much they can do other than damage infrastructure, but it'd be nice to defeat them, and you can see the Yamashiro garrison is far too big for them to capture that, which is the only threat they're really posing at the moment. For Takahisa, the oncoming Hiroshima army from the west is posing quite the threat because it could attack him while he is besieging Okayama Castle, which could be an issue. I have a couple of options. I could attack the castle right now, I could abandon the siege and see what happens, or I can do what I'm going to do, which is just move up reinforcements from Harima to join Takahisa's force and the plan is going to basically be to allow the Hiroshima to attack me and face both of their armies, about 1 3/4 stacks, on the field with the intention of defeating them both at once, and then I'll go on to capture Bizen immediately afterwards. So I'm quite confident that's going to be possible, so I'm going to allow the enemy to reinforce themselves, just so I can defeat them all in one convenient twist. I wanted to see how the balance bar looked with those reinforcements up. It's actually high enough that I probably could just auto-resolve an assault and take the castle with acceptable losses, but because Takahisa's army is already damaged, I don't want him to be even more damaged before the Hiroshima show up for the fight. So I am going to wait, as I said, and try and fight them all at once in a more even field battle. Usually changing the division you command makes life a little harder, as the new men are uneasy around you and are unsure of what the mysterious shuffle upstairs is going to mean for them. But this time it was rather strange. My old men have fought with me for a long time and had a firm belief in the purpose of our war. The new men are something else, almost fanatical about seeing battle with anyone who isn't covered in Sioux flags and unendingly honoured by my presence. I think the training schools may have gone a bit overboard, but then again, this devotion may prove very useful, not just on the battlefield. Over in Inaba, I decided it was time for Kunimitsu to yet again try to march on Hoki, wondering if the enemy had any defences this time. I saw a small Matsue force attacked it. The castle was undefended, but actually there was a massive Suwano stack just standing there, which gets involved in the battle with the tiny Matsue one. So Kunimitsu calls off the attack, but unfortunately doesn't have the movement required to get back to our territory. So now the enemy can just attack him and force me to fight that battle, but I can make things easier for myself by reinforcing him with some units ideal for a defensive battle, like these two teams of mortars. So they're going to go into his army, replacing the cavalry, who are ideal to come in as reinforcements, and I can move up these couple of artillery pieces as well to come in as reinforcements. So if they do come and fight me, that should even the odds. Last time the balance bar was a bit in their favour. Hopefully that will mean it's now about balanced. Another thing to consider about the Matsue, who we're just about to fight, is that they still have this force behind our lines here in Tajima. It's just standing here, it's been standing here, I think throughout all of last winter, meaning it suffered that attrition, and has now stood there all spring as well. No idea what they're trying to do. Up in Miyagi, I'm taking out an enemy geisha, if only just to demonstrate that I do kill the low-level enemy agents where I can, but can't really afford to kill high-level ones just because there's so many of them and I can't lose my own. I'm going to scout into Uzen to see what the enemy have. We know there's half a stack of Yonazawa forces and half a stack of Sendai Shogunal Vanguard forces. Nothing else appears to be on the way, so hopefully it's safe for Takamichi to march up. I don't know exactly what's on the road, but luckily it turns out there was nothing. So next turn he will arrive, but actually my forces in Miyagi are actually one turn away from being able to attack, and I wanted to have at least one of the armies come in to support Takamichi, just because it might not be completely easy for him to take both these armies and the massive garrison inside Uzen itself. So I moved Tananao up to face that half Yonazawa stack, which understandably falls back right inside the castle. I wasn't going to press the attack because I thought the Sendai would probably just join up with them for a counter-attack, so I'll put him in hiding for now. I also noticed that Takamichi has gained the trait of Devoted, which increases his loyalty, although his loyalty was already pretty high, I think, and I guess I already regarded him as being devoted, but still, good to know he got it, although I don't know how he got it. Now in Miyagi, I've been fiddling with the public order in order to get Yoshiyuji out of the castle so that his army can move. I decided that I'd wait for Kodama to arrive before I pressed any further north, so I can use all my armies, which means right now I can use Yoshiyuji to press west and help with the fight in Uzen. I have to exempt Miyagi from tax to make that completely acceptable, but still, that's good enough. I'm also going to move the foreign veteran in there into Yoshiyuji's army. He'll be training his troops. So now Yoshiyuji can move to go and stand next to Tananao. He can't attack anything, but what I can do is use him as bait, because Tananao is in theory hidden, so the Sendai might team up with the Yonazawa and attack Yoshiyuji, and then Tananao will appear from hiding and make the battle extremely in our favour, so there's a chance of that happening. And if not, Takamichi's going to arrive next turn, so we'll be able to completely destroy the defences at Uzen with all three armies. The Satsuma Imperial Vanguard army that had previously attacked Ki comes back for another go, only this time my force inside the castle is stronger than it was before because I've been reinforcing the area, and the enemy of course are a lot weaker, so I don't think they really thought this plan through. I auto-resolve the battle because it's very far in our favour, and we get a decisive victory, fewer than 100 casualties for us, almost 1,000 enemies killed. That's their entire remaining force gone, so the invasion of Ki is now over, at least the Satsuma one is. The army being chased by Takayuki moved towards Setsu, interestingly. We also see the Swano clan doesn't attack us over on the border of Hoki, so I guess Kunimitsu is safer now. The Matsui don't do anything either, as usual. The Hiroshima forces move armies into Bizen, so Bizen's in trouble, and Takahisa is probably going to be attacked very soon, although he hasn't been attacked by the leading Hiroshima army. Back in Ki, that Hiroshima army that I lost track of a while ago, the one that had passed through our defensives and Takayuki was chasing, reappears from the forest and decides to attack Okayama Castle. So now we have a more interesting battle on our hands, but you can see the enemy's army is already a little bit depleted and has lots of cavalry who won't be very good in the first phase of a siege assault, and their missile units are very poor. They do though have artillery, even wooden cannons are very good in a siege assault because they can destroy walls which can kill whole regiments at a time, and of course my army isn't particularly good either. But still, the enemy's lack of heavy infantry makes me feel like we've got a very good chance of winning this battle. Our scouts had already made contact with the Satsuma siege camp and let us know that they would aid our attack on the castle when we arrived. But when the siege camp came into view, it was deserted, but perfectly intact. The Sioux had not attacked it. The view of Sioux men around the base of the castle, dragging bodies to a nearby pit, told us what had happened. Everyone told themselves it was a kind of ruse and that really the Satsuma were just yet to arrive. But the truth was more simple and more obvious. Our orders to attack still stood, so next it was our turn to face the Vipers of Wakayama. The Hiroshima begin their attack and immediately we are able to hit them with fire rockets. I have two fire rocket teams, one facing west, one facing north. Luckily the enemy were coming from the north with a large force. However, their position on the dark side of a hill means it's hard for me to actually hit them with fire rockets straight away. You can see they're all coming with their cavalry from this direction, plus they're using their artillery to hit the north side of the castle, and their wooden cannons are just dropping shots onto this western wing, most of them missing though, fortunately enough. So they have another attack group coming from the west, some of the heavy infantry, with themselves being hit by fire rockets. This time the shots are more successful, damaging their morale and killing a few of them. They have a smaller attack group coming from the south. These is mostly spearmen and archers, so they're going to try and traverse the walls to get up and fight in the inside of the castle. On the east part of the map they're coming at us with matchlock troops. I thought they were going to duel at range with my levies, but actually they are going to use those matchlock troops as assault infantry, so my levies will have to try and hold them off. So the first unit that's going to attempt to get up to the walls will be these katana kachi. I've got carbine infantry on the wall, a few of them, and matchlock militants will be firing down at them. Plus the fire rockets are going to be now and again blasting them to destroy their morale. So they're not going to get too close without taking extreme losses. These guys are going to get quite close on the west wing because it's only these levy infantry defending against them who can't do very much because of their low accuracy. They do though manage to get off a volley at really close range, which kills quite a large number of the samurai and takes them down to wavering, but they are still going to be able to climb and fight with me in melee in the west wing. On the south part of the map, the enemy's archers have come into range and they start bombarding a unit inside the castle with arrows. It's actually my melee unit on the inside. A good tactic, since their melee units are attacking, I'm going to have to push my melee unit forward to face them in a minute, so it's good for the enemy to damage me before that happens. On the north part of the map, the enemy's katana kachi actually fell back when they reached the wall, but then came back from routing and came back to lead the assault, so a strange turnaround. They've been joined by these matchlock kachi who are taking rocket fire and taking it like men, continuing their advance. You can see I positioned some of my spear levy to receive the enemy's katanas once they get inside. On the east part of the castle, the guys who were going to try and climb the wall, these matchlock kachi, actually had second thoughts once they reached the wall itself because they were being gunned down by the levy on top. But then finally they started sending a couple of troops over, so the levy will have to hold them in melee for now. I've got another layer of levies on the wall behind who'll be able to support them. In the west wing, the enemy's Yadikachi are now inside and now doing combat with my melee forces, where of course the enemy have the advantage. But I do have a numerical advantage. I have much more of these spear levy, plus I have scouts on the wall just above them who'll be sniping the enemy's Yadikachi at close range. Their high accuracy will help me avoid friendly fire. So those forces that came in there actually got destroyed relatively quickly. The enemy's bowmen are still bombarding my Yari attendants inside the castle, this time with fire arrows, but the enemy's melee troops that climbed up the wall to attack have actually been mostly defeated because a lot of them died on the climb, and then I had some spare Yari attendants to defeat them nearby who were going to go into the west wing but weren't needed because the enemy's Yarikachi were defeated. So now I can rearrange my forces on the wall and start getting some fire on the enemy archers. I've got a few fire rockets shooting at them as well, as you can see. The enemy archers won't stay for long because that's definitely not in their advantage to keep fighting, but at this moment the enemy's cavalry decide they're going to commit to the fight. You can see the balance bars are already coming into my favour, so this is really a last-ditch attempt by the enemy to attack my walls. Most of my forces on the inside are still untouched by the enemy, so we're ready to receive them as they bring melee forces inside. They're also bringing these Matlokachi in, but they routed the second they came in, and they're going to attempt to escape. They're escaping right past my spearmen there, positioning them non-ideally. If I put them a little bit to the side, I could have caught them and got rid of them. But actually, to run to the gate, which is where they're going, they have to go through these levy infantry who I just moved onto the wall, so the levies will actually kill a good number of them. Closer to the wall, you can see their fire rockets bombarding the enemy's cavalry units on foot before they attempted to climb, which will destroy their morale. Outside the castle, I'd sent 2 squads of spear levy to go and start moving down the hill to attack the enemy's artillery positions, because I'll need to defeat them in order to win the battle, even if all the enemy's infantry get killed. But on the way, a squad of enemy Yarikachi intercepted them. Luckily, because I had these 2 teams, I could lock them in place with 1 team and bring the others in to attack them in the flank. So now the Yarikachi, although superior fighters, are severely outnumbered and outflanked and probably won't bother fighting for long. The enemy's cavalry and general and bodyguard units who are attacking my spear levy decide not to fight on. They were defeated quite rapidly, especially with the matchlocks on the wall behind me, gunning them down, and their army morale is already very low, so we're quite late in the battle. So they're going to fall back as well, meaning the enemy are now pretty much in full retreat, but for their artillery. They have 2 squads of wooden cannons to get rid of and the parrot guns. 1 squad routes very quickly and just leaves the battlefield. Another squad is staying here but routes after they see their friends going. The parrot guns hold on for a little bit and then rush away as well, so I don't actually have to charge my units down the hill to face them, which could have been dangerous because they could have hit me with shrapnel shot at close range, but they're not going to. They're going to get out of there, leaving the guns behind. The entire enemy army is now fleeing the field. So another battle at Okayama has become a decisive victory with very few losses on our side because they're just unable to really penetrate the castle or get near to the castle with enough units at once to make a decisive assault on it. So that's the Hiroshima threat gone, and in general, it's the threat to my inner domain gone. Most of the enemy's armies who slip past my defences have now been defeated, so unless they land more troops by sea, which they can do, we should be quite safe. So the enemy forces have been destroyed here, just a few hundred losses for ours, and plenty more for the enemy. That army is completely wiped out. The garrison of the castle remains intact and will regenerate the troops we lost quite quickly, and the ones among the garrison units don't really matter at all. Immediately after that, we get a battle over here in Bizen. The Okayama defenders have sallied out against Takahisa, and the Hiroshima army that had moved close to the castle is in reinforcement range. So pretty much exactly what I wanted to happen here is about to happen. We're going to face a battle against both armies. The balance bar is slightly in the enemy's favour, but I do have my own reinforcements coming in and the defenders' advantage, so the enemy's mortar team may not be useful to them, giving me a slight artillery edge as well. We'll see what we can do here next time. So that's all for now. We'll be fighting that decisive battle for Bizen and taking all of the momentum away from the Imperial attack next time on Teppou Republic.